I am joined right now by KP Reddy. Um, we do this every week. We call this Unpacking KP because I'm scrolling through LinkedIn and I come across this guy named KP Reddy, K period P period Reddy. And I read his post and I wonder what was KP thinking when he wrote this? Not really in the literal sense of that, but what inspired KP to post this on LinkedIn. So if you're not following KP Reddy, you need to do that. KP, thank you for joining me this morning and helping me unpack another one of your posts.
Fantastic.
All right, this one starts out. I don't know if this gets too personal. It gets into the family a little bit, but this one starts out. My wife brought this to my attention. So first of all, at least you were paying attention. Goes on to say the prefix inter, I-N-T-E-R, means between. This prefix appears in numerous English vocabulary words such as internet, interesting, and interview. The last one, interview, was super interesting to me. That's what KP said. It came to mind because I don't think enough startups do good enough job interviewing potential investors. The psychology that the fulcrum of power isn't dead center is a challenging dynamic for a founder. And it goes on from there. So interesting that you're having this conversation with your wife. And she starts unpacking, the prefix of the word. So why did that strike you? Why did that inspire you as you were thinking about the startups? I know you're dealing with a lot of startups, either our portfolio companies or others that would, maybe like to become portfolio companies. But what about that really inspired this post?
Yeah. So I think even like in job interviews, right? The power dynamic exists. I'm hiring you. I'm the one, the golden rule. I'm the one with all the gold. So I make all the rules. So you come to your interview and I ask you questions, which is not the intent of the word, right? The intent of the word is
Right.
it's between people. And so I think on the hiring side, we've gotten better, right? Like it's really like, hey, what questions do you have for me? What can I answer for you about this job? And blah, 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 to help you determine whether it's a fit. And so I think, I love the word fit because I think it takes away power dynamic. It puts the fulcrum right in the middle, right? And so I think we've made progress in business around interview process of it being about fit and the power dynamic. It's still biased towards the employer. They're the ones, negotiating, and you probably want the job or maybe need the job, right? And so but that dynamic in the investor side, it's really the power dynamic. It's all with the investor. And every once in a while, I'll meet a founder that actually is saying the right words around fit. Is this a fit? Here's what I'm looking for in an investor. But unfortunately, a lot of founders start looking for money way too late. And when they do that, they put themselves in a position where the power dynamic's even greater towards the investor because they're trying to raise around in 30, 60, 90 days. Well, I think I also may have put in that post, average investor stays in a company from first check to exit on average 7 years. The average marriage in America lasts about 8 years. So same, right? So this idea that, and by the way, in the romantic world, it's always about fit. It's always about figuring out fit. And so I think there are parallels to bring from that to say, wow, it's interesting. 7 years to exit, 8 years average wedding and marriage. So it's a minimum of a 7-year relationship in most cases. Sometimes it's a 10-year relationship with an investor. So the idea that you're going to determine fit over 2 or 3 phone calls or 2 or 3 meetings over a period of 30 days just does not make sense. And so you take that, the timing and the cadence is one thing. The second piece is, what are you asking that investor about how they think about life, their experiences, what's gone well, what's gone poorly. And if you go back to the analogy of dating, you would never go to a first date and say, let me tell you everything about myself. I started this company and 3 years ago, like, here's where I went to school, me. You would never, you'd have a lot of first dates if you did that every time. Talk about yourself, right? So I think
I don't know if you would, because I think, and maybe they're tied to the investor world here, but I think word would get around.
Probably
Hey,
you have to like move, find a new dating
yeah,
pool.
you would. Yeah. So is it the same then in the investor pool? Right?
100%.
Word gets around. Yeah.
Word gets around. We all talk to each other. We shamelessly, the biggest benefit of being in private equity is it's private. It's all inside information. That is all we do, is we broker inside information. Let me tell you about this. Let me tell you about that. It's very rare that people pitch us that we don't already have like intel on them. It's very rare. And especially beyond that, just like looking at LinkedIn and looking, we can do our homework on people, just like you would on a first date. You're going to go like stalk their Facebook and Instagram before you actually go on a date with them, right? We're doing that. I don't know if the founders are doing that. I did have a call yesterday with the founder. One, I thought it was fascinating. I would say it was probably the best prepared founder I've ever met. Okay. One, in his demo, he had me and our CTO and our team as users in the demo. So he got our information off LinkedIn, our pictures off LinkedIn, and added us as users to the demo. So when he was giving the demo, he's like, so if you want to do this with Jeff, let me show you how you would do that. Right? That's homework. That's preparation. He said he quoted probably 3 or 4 of my videos and my podcast, like all this stuff, right? He did his homework on me. He didn't just show up. In fact, it was a little embarrassing. He did more homework on me than I did on him. Because I don't expect people to be that prepared, quite honestly. I expect them to show up and talk at me. So I think, 1, the cadence. 2, how do you turn these into an interview versus a pitch? I know, there's a lot of terms that we use in startup world that are just the norm. I hate them. Pitch is one of them. Pitch is one of those things that I just hate that word. I think it's pretty much the fulcrum of power, all towards the investor, right? And I think it's important that founders go out and build relationships, and start to understand who they want to be in business with for the next 10 years. And also ask them lots of questions about their experiences. Tell me a time where you invested in a company and it didn't go well. Tell me about a time that a founder behaved poorly, whatever it is, right? Ask lots of questions. I would say I never get asked those questions. It's very rare that I get asked any kinds of questions. And we prompt so many times, hey, do you have any questions for us? No. Let me get my first slide. Do you have any questions for us? Let me pull up my first slide, is usually how it works.
Yeah. Does that dynamic come about because the founder is looking at this in terms of the money that they need, the money that they want versus the relationship?
Yeah, 100%. One of the gems only available on this platform I will give people: before you quit your day job, take 2 years to lay the groundwork. Lay the groundwork on your personal financial situation. Make sure your credit score is great, because it might go down from here. Like, who knows, right? Make sure your family life is in check, right? Make sure your house is in check. You may not have time to do all those repairs around your house. So take the time to put everything in check, because starting a startup is a big deal. It's not trivial. Part of that is also, while you're working on your company's dime, go to all the conferences. They'll pay you to go to conferences. Go network. Start laying the groundwork, and then start talking to investors like me. Tell me, like, hey, I'm at my day job. I've got some ideas. I'm trying to iterate the ideas. No better situation. And we funded a company that was in this situation. where the founder spent a year and a half just asking, he was working a full-time job, and he would ping me and ask me questions like, hey, what do you think about this? What are you thinking about that? I'm thinking this. And to the point where I almost felt like a co-founder. Like, how was I not going to write him a check?
Right.
Half the ideas I helped mold with him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what everybody wants. It's not just like, it's not just what I want, right? VCs, we have a weird business model as well. And I think we would rather be part of the process and engage and give feedback along the way and understand it. But it's really hard the day you quit your job and the clock starts ticking on burn rate. It's a really hard time to do it. So I really encourage people, take 2 years at your day job, maybe even move into a position that's less demanding. I had a founder one time worked at Home Depot. He actually took a job within Home Depot that he'd already had before because he knew how to dial it in. He's like, yeah, it's a 40-hour job that I get done in 30 hours. But if I took the more challenging promotion job, I'm going to be working 60 hours a week and I'm going to be all in on that. And there's no way for me to do my startup. I was like, that was fantastic. Like it's that thinking and cleverness that startup founders really have. It's not brute force. It's a cleverness that is really not used well.
Yeah. So we talk all the time about the importance of customer discovery. I mean, we've got an incubator based on it. We've got workshops based on it. I mean, it's vitally important. Is there a term here like investor discovery, or is there some industry term that either exists or that we need to coin right now?
Yeah, maybe. But I think like most things, right? If back to the dating analogy, you can go use something like Tinder or whatever, and you'll get a high volume opportunity, not that qualified, but high volume. But then what you find out is that a lot of successful relationships were through introductions through friends. I met them through a friend at work. It's always within a circle of friends. Those tend to be the relationships that have some staying power. And so I think it's very similar. You can go on to PitchBook and spam me like all these people do. You can go do all these things, or you start asking around. You start building relationships. You spend time in communities. People ask me all the time, KP, like, you spend so much time working on your community and building out the Shadow Partners community. Why do you do that? I'm like, it's an investment in the future. If I can just show up to my community and invest in the startups that are there and have my startups hire people that are in the community that we already know, and then their customers are already in the community that we already know, like, how much better is that than having to walk out the door and talk to a stranger?
Yeah. We were talking earlier offline about the network effect. In a different context, but it's the same thing. That's what you're describing right now, right? It's a network effect, and investing in that network creates tremendous leverage.
Yeah.
Versus going out and the Tinder analogy is a good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for helping me unpack this. Again, if you're listening to this and you go, what post are you guys talking about? Well, go over to LinkedIn. Make sure you're following KP Reddy, and the way it reads on the screen is K.P. Reddy, REDDY. If you're not following him, you're listening to this, I've got questions, but this is your opportunity to go follow him. This post begins with, "My wife brought this to my attention. The prefix inter, I-N-T-E-R, means between. This prefix appears in numerous English vocabulary words such as internet, interesting, and interview." So that's what KP and I've been talking about here. KP, thank you for helping me unpack this post, as always. And as you're listening to this, thanks for listening. Hope you've gotten something out of this, and we'll be back again next week with another Unpacking KP. Thanks, everybody.